a guest.
Cat.
Yeah, we go. Morning. Yeah, Laura and Kat has joined us. And what's your cat's name?
Carter.
Sorry? Tiger.
Carter. C-A-R-T-E-R.
Oh, Carter. Okay.
Carter, as in Get Carter. Oh, no, that's an English film.
All right, good. So, fact or fiction, I think was the topic this morning. Lee, was it? We'll have to go down that road and find out which one is more important. So, Lee, I'm going to just toss it straight over to you and see whether fact is more important or fiction is more important.
Well, I don't want to know. I mean, it would be hard to say which is more important. But we can have that debate. I mean, I think both are important, but which is more powerful in terms of the impact? And I'm going to put my vote fairly and squarely in the camp of fiction. And the reason for that is, so two things. The one is that there was an interview. I'm going to bring in some American politics, Laura. There was an interview with Newt Gingrich. Yeah. Just during the presidential elections, not this one, the previous one. So the one in which President Trump was elected president. So just before that election, so during that election campaign, Newt was being interviewed, and one of Trump's calls for reasons why he should be elected is because of the rise of crime, and he was bringing in law and order. That was his big thing, and the journalist speaking to Newt said, but statistically, crime is going down in the country. You can see over the last 20 years, it is being, steadily crime figures of all kinds are reducing. And Newt said, but that is not what people perceive. He said, but the facts are that crime is going down. And he said, the facts mean nothing. It's what people think that matters. And that was actually the reality. And that's borne out in the vaccine. And I'm not even talking about the COVID vaccine. I'm talking about even prior to that, there was a whole anti-vaxxer campaign because of this idea that vaccines caused autism. And it's completely not proven. In fact, they've done so much research now because of this idea that has proven that vaccines do not cause autism. And they've proven it in so many different ways, in so many different research. Sorry, I'm losing my words. Obviously, brain is tired. And that it is absolutely categorically not the case, but people still believe that vaccines cause autism. So that's the one side of the argument, is that people don't believe the facts even though they're true. And then the other side of the argument is the credence and the power that politicians and governments give to fiction. That when you want to rule categorically over a people, one of the things you do is you destroy their books, you destroy their the cultural icons of that culture. And those are symbolized in books and plays and works of art. And you either ban them or burn them. And I think that, again, just symbolizes how important those are. And one of those examples, and I just end off with an article that I was reading that is called, is about the role of theatre in acting against apartheid. It was called Protest Theatre. And there was just one paragraph that I'll read at the end. It says, John Carney, Winston Nshona, and Athol Fugard had massive international success with Sizwe Banzi is Dead, in which a man takes on a dead man's official papers. Carney and Nshona were arrested in the Transkei while performing the play. Guarded by a young rifle-bearing policeman, they were driven in a police vehicle through bare African countryside at the dead of night. As the van stopped at the police station in Mthatha, the cop seemed ready to pick a fight. He leaned forward and whispered, "I saw your play last night." Then after a pause, he added, "I thought it was wonderful." And so I think the power of fiction, the power of the impact that it can have on lives and thought processes to change people has greater impact than fact. That's my thoughts.
Thanks, Lisa. One man's fact is another man's fiction, or person. I suppose Ed, sorry, my apologies. Yeah, got to get PC, be correct here. So there we go. So, well, on that note, I better hop straight across to Ed so he can tell me whether my facts are fiction or my fiction is fact.
Yeah, I quite like this subject because my early life was all about facts. You know, I did science at school. I then became an accountant. But I think facts are important. They're the most important thing there is. We should base everything on fact. But fiction's more powerful. And if I think to things that have affected me, it's books. And perhaps the one that had the biggest impact on me was To Kill a Mockingbird. And I think, you know, we can see that Trevor has either been inspired or traumatized by Animal Farm. So, you know, books have power. And I think it's because there's emotion in there. When I had some training with Greenpeace about being an activist, they sort of stress it's very important to know the facts, but facts will never, ever change someone's opinion. So you have to work on emotions, and emotions come in stories. And we kind of see it in the coronavirus thing because, you know, the government message isn't around the facts about social distancing. It's a message, don't kill your granny. You know, even though no one wants to kill their granny, and that's a fiction, don't kill your granny is the message because it's more powerful. And I think we like fiction better than we like facts because facts are difficult. And one of the greatest fictions there is, and people like it, is this whole thing about lemmings going over a cliff, because we can use it as a metaphor for people slavishly following the crowd. It's a total myth. Lemmings do not commit suicide. Lemmings do not throw themselves over a cliff. It was created by Disney. Norwegian lemmings, if the snow's right, have a very good winter. And then every sort of 3 or 4 years, there's loads and loads of lemmings pop up in the spring when the snow melts. And they eat all the grass in all the food in the area they're in, so they migrate. And when they migrate, just like wildebeest, they cross rivers. And a couple of them might die. And then in 1958, Disney created this film, White Wilderness. And he actually filmed the brown lemming in northern Canada. Nothing to do, and they don't migrate at all. And they don't have huge population swings. And what he did was he paid trappers $1 a lemming to get loads of lemmings. And he used a truckload to tip them over a cliff in Calgary to get the picture. And we believe it to this day because we like to believe it. And I think we then get in this whole thing of mixing up fact and fiction because we don't really care about the facts. I was on a Zoom call the other day when someone was talking about making a red velvet cake. And the red velvet cake comes from squashed up beetles, cochineal, which led on to a conversation around vanilla. And you get vanilla essence and vanilla extract. One's a natural product, the extract. One's an unnatural product, the essence. And that's made, nowadays, it's made from, crude oil, basically. One of the byproducts of crude oil, they kind of make it from that. But it used to, at one point in time, be made from the excretion of the anal gland of a beaver. But it was a bit too difficult to squeeze a beaver's bum over a small bottle. So they stopped doing that. But that myth still goes on. And actually, I heard someone the other day talking about it when we had this discussion about red velvet cake, and they spread the myth. And I thought, well, I'll just look it up to see when they stopped doing it. And they stopped doing it years and years and years and years ago. And in my research, I found a recent article in a newspaper about extract being made out of beaver bums. But it was completely wrong. It was just sloppy journalism. And it happened because someone on TikTok had said that extract was made from beaver stuff. What they meant was essence. But this then got picked up by the journalists and spread throughout. So we just love this whole meld of fact and fiction. Why let fact get in the way of a good story? So yeah, I'm an ambassador for an organization called Ask for Evidence, which encourages people to ask for the facts behind stories. But people don't like the facts because it gets in the way sometimes of the story. And then sometimes when they do hear the facts, they just try and discount them because it doesn't fit with their narrative. So yeah, I think if you want to get stuff done, tell lies. That's why we have politicians.
Great, thanks, Ed. Yeah, I love those stories. So Laura, that must give you something to write about from a psychological perspective.
Well, all I know is I can't speak for beavers because I don't really know any. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So I can speak with the fact or fiction. What I agree with what a lot has been said in regard to facts. For me, I'm an academic by training, right? So I spent 12 years in college plus, and I spent 16 years teaching college. So I have a firm foundation. I know facts. I know that facts tell. What's meaningful is fiction. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that is non-fact. So I'll give a quote, and I know I've given it before here in this forum. I am not I am not what I think I am. I am not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. So basing that on Charles Horton Cooley, an early 20th century sociologist, the looking glass self, I see myself based on what I think or how I think you see me. It doesn't matter what I see in the mirror. It doesn't matter what I think you see in the mirror of me. What matters is of what I think you think of me when you look in the mirror, looking at me. And the best example I can give of that in some type of relation is the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, Matthew McConaughey, Angela Bassett, Tom Skerritt. And she's a scientist. She's some type of astrologist, astronomer. I can't even, some high-tech MIT. And so there's supposedly some type of life existence that's trying to contact our globe. And Matthew McConaughey's character is a sage. He is a spiritual leader. He's a spiritual sage. And she's very much of the scientific method, which I get. You know, I can tell you the periodic table of elements if you want it. And I know research in that. At the same time, there's a pivot, at least in my life, of moving over towards what's real, science or fact. What's science? Is that fact? Or what's real? And that is not, that is intangible. And so her father dies in the beginning of the movie. And so they're having a moment at a gala. And she's a scientist. And this is the conundrum. I think this is for me is like the message for at least my life and then my presence here and this world presence, whatever it is. And she's articulating the importance of science and what's real. And he asks her, "Did you love your father?" And she said, "Of course. Prove it." There's no scientific data to indicate whatsoever that that's factual, but she knows it. For that is fact. For her, that's faith, that's hope, that's fact. I can give you neutrons, I can give you elements, I can give you a scientist, I can give you data ad nauseum. And what's truth for me is how I feel it. And in the words of Maya Angelou, no one, when I leave the room, is going to remember necessarily what I say. What they're going to remember is how I made them feel. That's fact. So what's fiction is fact. What's fact is fiction. Who's to say? Who's to say what is good or bad? There it is.
Well, thanks, Laura. Yeah, now I'm completely confused. You know, when you look in the mirror, everything goes backwards. So, you know, depends which way you're looking at things. The backwards, or is it the right way around? So I don't know. Sometimes I think all these things are backwards. You know, is there such a thing as fact? After that, I'm not too sure. So Jasper, are your facts scrambled into fiction, or do you scramble your fiction into fact and have them for breakfast?
Morning, and well done, Laura. That was really profound what you shared there with us. I'm glad you joined us this morning. Yeah, and I think I can, since we have created the president with Trevor, we can literally flip any topic into another topic. And I like what Lee started there with the, instead of facts versus fiction, is perception is reality. So one can also, have a whole discussion about that and recircle back to that from that angle. But I think when the topic first came up, I was again just reminded of the power of story versus fact. So, and the reason of story is people remember a story. And all the good public speakers are masters at picking good stories, whether it's true or fiction, but it's the story that illustrates the point, and you walk away there, and because your emotions has been touched by the story, you walk away a better person and you remember. I was reminded of one of our earlier discussions on books that impacted you. Ivan, I think you had the book The Goal, which was a fiction, but the fiction was used to bring over the concepts of bottlenecks and production methods in a company. And I was reminded of one of my favorite books, The Richest Man in Babylon, which is probably just a story, but it illustrates a point on financial literacy so well that I'm still using it today in training people on that, and it seems to impact people. So, and then Jesus, throughout his short 3-year impact here on earth, he shared parables. And then to this day, we still reflect on the parables and the truths that are in the parables. So it comes back then to the power of fiction. So I'm all for power of fiction, but I'm also leaning towards what Ed says. You know, in the end, truth will be borne out by the facts. So you do need facts. But then also yesterday we had that interesting book that Ivan shared with us, how you can literally make anything correlate with facts. So if you are not a clever thinker, you can literally make people believe that the consumption of margarine has a direct bearing on what do you call it, people getting divorced and all sorts of things. So when we start having these deep philosophical discussions, it's almost you want to throw up your hands in the air and say, but then how will we ever move forward? Because anyone can make anything and manipulate any data, and that's exactly what the politicians and the media do to get us to live in a constant state of fear, so that we will accept anything they throw at us as gospel and a solution. And I was thinking of how we still are now fighting and we can't get rid of it. And although there was court cases that showed that this Bell Pottinger thing about white monopoly was really just a thing, it wasn't real. It was just a fiction of their imagination. But because it stirred or struck an emotional chord in the lives of those people who felt deprived, it has now caused a whole chain reaction that now you can't stop it. So the fact that Bell Pottinger don't exist anymore and everybody now know that was a hoax, or not even a hoax, it was a designed misinformation campaign. Now the evidence is out there, and in South Africa we're battling with this perception of white monopoly controlling everything, where the truth is not there. The truth is somewhere else. So I was thinking of also a phenomena that, let's say, people who come out of a world war or a disaster in a nation, and all the resources were just taken away from them, and it becomes real survival. Then out of that real survival, people start reaching out and they start sharing and they start building up. And that first generation of those parents who survived that calamity and disaster become very frugal. They don't throw stuff away. They are, resourceful and productive. But then as circumstances improve and people start having better and better lives, and they can afford luxuries and go to movies and have cars, and now people have 2 cars and 3 cell phones, and now a sense of depravity comes in. And if you've got 3 cell phones and I only got 2 cell phones, I have a sense of being deprived, and therefore I now hate you, and life is unfair and there's inequality. So I'm thinking of the phenomena of people who have actual survival and be grateful for the little, versus this whole sense of being deprived. So I think that is way, I've moved away from the fiction versus facts, but the reality is it's actually a thin line, that in some cases the facts can have a massive bearing on decision making for that moment. But I think in general, it's the mixture of the two. If you want to bring facts across and build on it, find a way to illustrate it with a good story. And maybe coming back to the book, The Goal and The Richest Man in Babylon and that kind of thing.
Sure. I don't know what to say. Me being an analytical, you guys have just totally destroyed my perception of the world here. I mean, I base everything on fact, and now I'm being told that fiction is actually what counts. So, I'm shattered. What can I say? Just end of the world as we know it. Everything's a myth. Where do we take it from there? Yeah, I don't know. A good story is always a good story, whether it's factual or fiction. Is interesting, and it's a challenge. And I mean, we've Ed spoke about the campaign about don't kill your granny. Well, we've had some interesting ones here in South Africa. So we had alcohol banned for at least I think 5 or 6 months. We had cigarettes banned for 4 or 5 months. We were told at one point in time we had to wear long pants, and we couldn't wear a t-shirt unless it was under a jacket, and we couldn't wear open shoes, they had to be closed. And we've had some wonderful facts that have come out of this whole corona episode for us. And South Africans seem to be particularly good at creating some really weird and wonderful stories as to how you control and manage and keep this thing in check. So yeah, facts, do they mean anything? Well, I suppose the question is, who actually determines that a fact is a fact? Because one man's fact is the other man's fiction. Sorry, Ed, one person's fact is the other person's fiction. I'll get that right eventually. I mean, it's you got to give me a little bit of leeway here. Yeah, I mean, one person might say, this is absolutely factual, and somebody else will dispute that. So who's right? Let's just have a look at the laws, some of the laws of physics and things like that have believed for centuries to be complete fact. And, now we're into quantum physics. It's all been disproved. So, what is fact? I don't know. Where do we go from there, Lee? Yeah, back into the quantum soup. I don't know. So I think Trevor is Trevor. Yeah, unmiked. Have you unmasked and unmiked, or have you just unmiked?
Yeah, well, I can't believe this erudite panel here. Look it up in the dictionary, Ed. Has not even mentioned, unless I've been distracted, ancient aliens. Has anyone watched this production of fact versus fiction, Ancient Aliens? I mean, you know what? I'm actually concerned because I was listening to the last couple of discussions, and it always concerns me. But then Ivan was starting to take his side, and I'm worried that Animal Farm is actually taking over the rest of mankind, which is in the dictionary, or is that humankind, Ed? And I think that goes through my head. You all by now know that I'm just a simple man, and I can only count to 1, 2, 3. But as I'm sitting here, I'm trying to work out where do I want to be in the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 odd years, God willing. I'm not going to give away my age. And so I'm trying to take all of the inputs that are coming through to me and saying, okay, what becomes predictive? And I heard someone mention Star Trek the other day. Could have been Ivan, because he is a bit of a Trekkie. And very much so that things in Star Trek were predictive indicators of what was going to happen on this planet over the next 20, 30 odd years. So what today are going to be predictive indicators of what's going to happen in the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 35 years? I think those are being put in front of us right now. And is it in the book Animal Farm? So I'm going to highlight that. Or is that passé now and has gone? Or is it in these productions? I heard, in fact, I was watching Ancient Aliens. So here we go. I'm giving away where I get all of my information. But I was fascinated to hear that the movie director of Ancient Aliens was in a presidential meeting with President Eisenhower. Now, whether this was fact or fiction, I don't know. But he was in a meeting in the mid-1950s with someone called Val Thor, who was sent by the, what did they call him? The super group of 9 that are in control of the entire universe, and that all of everything that we saw in Star Trek was actually shared at this presidential meeting with this guy that was representing the Universal Panel of 9. Now, how come none of you actually mention this, and I'm the only one who understands or receives all this information? Maybe I've got to go back and check my sources. I'm going to go and read Animal Farm backwards and just see if there's not a message in there that I can interpret. But seriously, I'm absolutely amazed with the type of, hey, information that is going on. There you go. Is that the guy, Val Thor? That's him. So you see, it's got to be factual. There it is. There's his picture. I find all this stuff absolutely fascinating, but fascinating because decisions I take today, I'd like to have the inputs of something that keeps me on the trend that will get me in front of people that didn't think about this 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. So what resource do I use to actually get me ahead of everyone else on this planet? That's what I'll leave you with. I've got a lot of work to do today. I don't just read Animal Farm every day backwards. I'm off.
Thanks, Trevor. I'm glad you brought in Ancient Aliens. I love Ancient Aliens. Absolutely superb production, and lots of facts in there, I have no doubt. And as you can see, there it is. It's on the internet. It's a picture. It's grainy. It's old. It must be real. This guy came to warn the Americans. Yes, Ed.
Is there a subtle message in the fact that it was Trevor that raised Ancient Aliens?
Well, yeah. Who knows? And he won't disclose his age. So could be that he's hundreds of years old and he's come back to visit. I don't know, but I would hope that real Ancient Aliens would show a modicum of intelligence and not follow people like Reiku's wheel, and just go off to Valiant Thor instead. I mean, far more important information coming out of those areas. So, right, Trevor behind the mask. Yeah, we think, just take the mask off, and you never know what you might find. Anyway, we're going down a completely different road here. Lisa, you better bring us back in line and tell us. See, my cat just disappeared. It must be an ancient alien. Moved across the screen and disappeared in the blink of an eye.
Well, I don't know if this will actually be a reasonable topic of conversation, but I am interested in this idea of fiction actually becoming fact. Edward spoke about the Disney movie with the lemmings, and Trevor's talking about Ancient Aliens, and I was also interested in an article on Star Trek that many innovations that we have today originated in Star Trek, and there's a very logical reason for that, because there are many Trekkies who are also nerds and innovators and technical gurus. And so one of the innovations, apparently, that's come out of Star Trek is glass sliding doors, or sliding doors, because that was in the movie. And some guy said, oh, how cool would that be if we made that? So fiction actually then starts creating fact. And so that's what I would be interested to talk about tomorrow. It's not just what's more important, but specifically how has fiction created fact? Can we talk about that?
We can talk about anything. We can talk about fictional becoming fact. Yeah, absolutely. So have a great day, folks. Don't get lost in all the fiction. Try and stick to the facts. That's what's real. Well, that's what they tell me. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But have a good one, and we'll see you tomorrow. Go well. Cheers.